Hello, Vlogalogue. I hope you're doing well. So we don't have really a formal topic this week, and just to clarify, just so that Alex doesn't feel too much pressure, the idea of kind of having a topic was never really that we had to, like back when we were starting up Vlogalogue, wasn't really to kind of force us into a box of like, you have to talk about X, Y, and Z. It was really just to serve kind of like, if you take a creative writing class, they'll say, free write on this, if you don't have anything else to free write about. And if you want to do something else, do something else. It was just kind of the sort of thing where we didn't want people to feel like they didn't know what to talk about, and so they were stuck trying to make a video. Just trying to lower the barriers to entry as far as making stuff. Because, a weekly commitment is significant. But to Alex's question, is YouTube dead? Well, no. I mean, the site's still up, still works, it's doing pretty well. There was a Wall Street Journal article like 2 weeks ago. I don't read the Wall Street Journal, but it made the rounds on Twitter or something, and basically saying like YouTube as a company isn't profitable, which is really funny. You look at there's so much frustration right now with kind of YouTube, the entity, as they're making all these decisions in their own best interest and not necessarily in the best interest of creators in the community and blah. It was curious that the Wall Street Journal pointed out that one of the things that YouTube has been working really hard on and still hasn't achieved is that when people consider, the general populace considers YouTube to be a video hosting repository, a place where you would embed videos from, where you'd click through to, rather than a centralized hub of place to visit, like a social media platform or a Reddit front page or whatever it is, which is just really laughable, because it feels like it used to be that, and then they explicitly did things that made it not that. Getting rid of video replies, or making it very, very hard to leave comments, or curating the subscription feeds. But I mean, as far as the real question that Alex was asking was not just is YouTube dead, but also like why aren't people making videos? And it's not just kind of the Vlogalogue crew, but it's a lot of people. I look back at the people who I used to watch all the time, and a whole bunch of them are gone. And I think we don't know. We don't know we don't know what we don't know. I would love to find someone who would subscribe to, an equal number of people, none of which overlapped with me, and say like, hey, how many of those people are still making stuff? Maybe it's a sampling error. But at least as far as Vlogalogue crew is concerned, like I can't speak for anyone else. I can speak for me, and I can tell you that it is infinitely harder to make anything now, and I don't think that's just a video thing. And this is sort of a video essay that I've been trying to make for like 6-7 months, and I'm still doing research and trying to figure out exactly what I want to say and how I want to say it, so I won't go too far into it. But I think there's obviously you can throw a whole bunch of factors as far as why people find it more difficult to make stuff. It's difficult. We have this kind of absurd sense of fairness, where we evaluate things based on the other people that we see, and then we have the selection bias problem. So when you put out a video and it gets 100 views, it feels very unfair in comparison to the people with millions of views or thousands of views, and then because of that selection bias, we tend to subscribe to people who are popular. It tends to be very apparent to us when there are people who are putting out content that are doing incredibly well. So it kind of exacerbates that fairness instinct, heuristic, I don't know, whatever. So that we feel like, wow, this really wasn't worth my time. Which is, it's not a rational way to look at things. It should be, kind of relative to your own experience, relative, whatever. But our system one, I've been reading Daniel Kahneman, kind of our gut reaction is to find that that's really unfair and to resent it. And so it requires a level of, you have to kind of control your impulses and keep at it. And I think that's harder now. Back when nobody was getting a lot of views, or back when there were 2 people and they got all the views, that problem doesn't exist. But I think, in particular, over the past 2 years, there's been a big change in a ton of social media that I think has kind of been missed, and that is that there's been this big push in an effort nominally to combat trolling, but really to enforce greater visibility and better ad targeting. But there's been a push for authentic, real-name personalities across all social media. And this kind of Facebook was always sort of that way. You had to verify with a .edu address when it first launched. But the problem with this kind of push toward authenticity, it's I think socially people will say, well, this is going to keep people more accountable, it's less easy. And YouTube said this when they launched the Google Plus stuff, is that it's going to be more of a pain to troll, so it's going to cut down on that. And maybe, but I think one of the problems is that social media is very, very weird, because what we're building is we're building a constructed identity that operates not like a person, but like a brand. It's a meme. And it's something that gets transmitted and operates even independently of us, like a software daemon. I can go ahead and tweet something out, and overnight, while I'm not there, it can get retweeted and spread to a whole bunch of other people. Effectively, the meme Kevin is knocking on people's doors and saying stuff while I'm asleep. And on services that curate news feeds, it's even more pronounced, because it's not just that someone else happens to retweet, but it's actually Facebook decides, okay, 3 people liked this, therefore I'm going to now share it with other people. And there are implications to how you want to operate as a brand and how you want to operate as an individual. And I think part of the problem is that because of this real identity thing, it becomes very easy for us to conflate those 2 things. You look at a Facebook profile, and it has your name on it, and it has your personal information, and it has some things that you said, and it has some beliefs that you held, it has some photos that you took. And we really don't like that. Or at least we won't 6 months from now. If I were to come out and say, I hate Obama, or I love Obama, or whatever, my opinion could change in 6 months. But there is always kind of that visual reinforcement of, this is your quantified personality, and if you want to change, if you want to go in a different direction, that's not really possible anymore. We really like to think of ourselves as very fluid identities, and I think that when we've been pushed into this point where we have to create a brand that shares our name, it makes it very easy for us to conflate those identities, and then you feel stuck, that you are now the person who shares, vines, or the person who makes witty quips, or the person who talks about tech stuff some of the time, or the person, whatever it may be. And I think that fear, there's a problem there, is that basically every time that you share anything now, you are further restricting and narrowing your brand identity. And so there's almost a disincentive, it's to actually put out anything of meaning, because you know that you're going to be accountable for that kind of forever. And this is not anything new. Certainly there are politicians who face this, where they're running for something and someone will pull back and say, hey, in high school you wrote an op-ed saying the opposite thing. Clearly you're a flip-flopper and you're not worthy of our attention. And there are musicians who will gain a lot of traction in one particular style, and they want to go do something completely different, and they can't because they're typecast. Actually, typecasting is a pretty good example. Poor Brent Spiner, Lieutenant Commander Data. because that's always, yeah, and Leonard Nimoy too. I mean, there's always kind of that typecast. This is the person that you are because that is your brand. It's not your individual identity, but it is your brand, and it becomes very difficult for us not to conflate the two. And that's it's one of the things that's really scaring me and keeping me off of social media and YouTube. I'm sure it's different for other people, and I need to do more reading and blah. But I've rambled a very long time, so I apologize for taking up so much of your day. And please don't hold anything I said against me, because in 6 months, I assure you, I will be a completely different person with completely different views.